What happens when the Queen of Funk, a woman whose voice has defined an entire genre of music, who has been belting out hits since before most of the audience was born, sits down for what should be a celebration of her legendary career, only to have her struggles and her authenticity questioned by a host who seems determined to tear down everything she's built? What you're about to witness is one of the most explosive confrontations ever captured on daytime television. The moment when Chaka Khan, the 10-time Grammy winner who gave us I'm Every Woman and Ain't Nobody, reminded the world that the fire in her voice comes from a fire in her soul that nobody can extinguish. The studio went dead silent. The audience held their breath, and Joy Behar discovered that some queens don't tolerate disrespect, especially not from someone who has never walked in their shoes. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments because, trust me, you're going to want to talk about this one. The morning had started with genuine excitement at the View Studios. Chaka Khan was coming on the show, and everyone from the producers to the makeup artist was looking forward to it. At 71 years old, Chaka remained one of the most respected voices in music history, a woman whose career had spanned 5 decades and influenced countless artists across every genre. She had recently been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a long overdue recognition of her immense contribution to American music. Chaka arrived at the studio with the regal bearing that had always been her trademark, her signature. Wild hair was styled magnificently, and her presence seemed to fill every room she entered. She greeted the production staff warmly, taking time to compliment the young people working behind the scenes, remembering what it was like to be underestimated and overlooked. This was who Chaka Khan had always been, a woman who never forgot where she came from. In the green room, her team reviewed the standard talking points about her recent induction, her new music, her continued touring. Chaka listened with half an ear, more interested in the energy of the place than the logistics of the interview. She had been doing this for 50 years. She knew how to handle a talk show. What nobody anticipated was that Joy Behar had arrived at the studio that morning with an agenda that had nothing to do with celebrating a legend. The studio lights were warm as Chaka took her seat at the famous table. She greeted each host with genuine warmth, her famous smile lighting up the space. The audience gave her a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes, and she accepted it with the gracious humility of someone who had learned that fame was a gift, not a right. Whoopi Goldberg opened the segment with obvious reverence. Our next guest is a true living legend. 10 Grammy Awards, countless hits that have become part of the American songbook, and a voice that has inspired generations of artists. Please welcome the incomparable Chaka Khan. The applause continued as Chaka settled into her chair with practiced elegance. Thank you so much, babies. What a beautiful welcome. I feel the love in this room, and I appreciate every single one of you. Sarah N. asked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and Chaka spoke movingly about what it meant to finally receive that recognition after decades of being overlooked. She talked about the artist who had influenced her, about the long road from Chicago's South Side to the heights of musical achievement, about her gratitude for a career that had allowed her to touch so many lives. You know, when I started singing with Rufus back in the 70s, nobody told us we were making history, Chaka said, her voice carrying that distinctive warmth that had made her famous. We were just some kids from Chicago trying to make music that felt real, that came from our souls. We didn't have the internet telling us what was popular. We didn't have algorithms deciding what people should hear. We just had our instruments and our voices and our hearts. And now, 50 years later, to be recognized alongside the artists I grew up admiring. It's overwhelming. The audience was captivated. This was the Chaka Khan they had come to see, humble despite her monumental achievements, grateful despite the struggles she had endured, still burning with the same passion that had defined her entire remarkable career. For a few minutes, everything felt exactly as it should, like a proper celebration of a true legend. Then Joy Behar leaned forward with that familiar edge in her voice, and the atmosphere in the studio shifted dramatically. "So, Chaka," Joy began, her tone carrying an unmistakable sharpness. "You talk about making history and being recognized. But let's be honest here. Your career hasn't exactly been a smooth ride, has it? The drug problems, the rehab stints, the years when you basically disappeared from the scene. Don't you think the Hall of Fame honor is as much about nostalgia as actual achievement?" The question landed like a bomb. The audience went silent. The other hosts looked stunned. Chaka's expression flickered, but her voice remained steady. "Joy, I've never hidden from my past. I've been very open about my struggles with addiction, but those struggles don't define my career. What defines my career is the music I've made, the lives I've touched, the artists I've influenced. The Hall of Fame doesn't induct people based on nostalgia. They induct people based on impact. But Joy wasn't finished. Your biggest hits were in the 70s and 80s. I'm Every Woman, Ain't Nobody. That was 40, 50 years ago. What have you done lately that justifies all this celebration?" The tension in the room became palpable. "What have I done lately?" Chaka repeated, her voice quieter now, but more intense. "I've been touring the world, selling out venues on every continent. I've been recording new music that connects with audiences across generations. I've been mentoring young artists who want to learn from someone who's actually done it, and I've been staying alive, Joy. Staying sober, staying relevant. At 71 years old, that's an achievement in itself in this industry." Joy pressed further, invoking Whitney Houston and suggesting her version of I'm Every Woman overshadowed the original. Chaka didn't flinch. "Whitney Houston was my sister. I loved her. I still love her. And yes, her version of that song was beautiful. But I recorded I'm Every Woman in 1978. It was an anthem when women needed anthems. Whitney's version came 15 years later and introduced it to a new generation. That's not being overshadowed. That's called having a legacy." She leaned forward, her presence commanding the room. "And for the record, Whitney always credited me. She honored where that song came from. That's what real artists do, they lift each other up. Maybe that's something you don't understand because you've never created anything that lasted." The words hit hard. The audience reacted audibly. Joy, visibly rattled, tried to regain control. "I'm just asking what people might be thinking. You've had a lot of drama in your life." That's when Chaka stopped holding back. "Drama," she said, her voice now carrying decades of truth. "You want to talk about drama? Drama is growing up black and female in America in the 60s. Drama is fighting your way into an industry that didn't want you. Drama is being told your voice was too powerful, too raw. Drama is watching people you love die and still finding the strength to get on stage and sing about joy. Joy, and I've lived every moment of it out loud without apology." The studio had gone completely silent. The audience was witnessing something they hadn't expected. A woman laying bare her soul in response to attacks that deserved nothing but contempt. "You asked if I wish I had done things differently." Chaka Khan continued. "Let me tell you something. Every mistake I've made, every fall I've taken, every moment I've been down it, all went into the music. It all went into the voice you hear on those records. You don't get that. Power in my voice without the pain that shaped it. You don't get the joy without knowing the sorrow. That's what makes real music, joy not perfection, authenticity." Joy Behar tried to regain control of the conversation. "I understand that, but surely you can see how your struggles have affected your reputation. There are people who remember the difficult performances, the erratic behavior, the years when you seemed to be struggling publicly. Don't you think that's overshadowed your achievements? Chaka laughed, short, sharp, and filled with decades of experience dealing with people who tried to diminish her. Overshadowed my achievements. Baby, I have 10 Grammy Awards. 10, I've sold millions of records around the world. I've influenced artists from Beyoncé to Adele to Mary J. Blige. Every female R&B singer working today owes something to what I did in the 70s and 80s. That's not overshadowed by anything. That's a legacy that will outlive both of us. She stood up in the movement, commanded immediate attention. Despite her 71 years, there was something undeniable about her presence. Something that filled the entire studio. You want to know what I think this is really about? Joy. I think you don't understand artists. I think you don't understand what it takes to bare your soul for strangers night after night, year after year, decade after decade. I think you look at someone like me and you see the struggles, the imperfections, the human being behind the legend and that makes you uncomfortable. Her voice rose not in anger, but in truth, in something earned over a lifetime. Because here's the truth about my life. Yes, I struggled with addiction. I went to rehab. I did the work. I got clean. Yes, I've had failed relationships. I've had my heart broken. I've made mistakes in love. Yes, I've had feuds in this industry. I've stood up for myself when others wanted me to be quiet and grateful. But through all of it, I kept singing. I kept creating. I kept showing up. She pointed at Joy, her finger steady. What have you done through your struggles, Joy? You sit at this table every day and pass judgment on people who actually do things. You comment on lives you've never lived, on art you've never created, on struggles you've never faced. And when someone like me sits across from you, someone who has actually lived a full, complicated, messy, beautiful life, all you can do is try to tear them down. The accusation landed with devastating force. Joy opened her mouth to respond. But Chaka wasn't finished. Let me tell you something about I'm Every Woman. That song wasn't just a title, it was a statement. I am every woman because I've been through everything. I've been poor and I've been rich. I've been celebrated and I've been forgotten. I've been addicted and I've been sober. I've been loved and I've been alone. And through all of its I've never stopped being exactly who I am. She turned to the audience, her voice softening, becoming something intimate, something deeply human. To every woman watching this who has ever been made to feel ashamed of her struggles, who has ever been told that her past disqualifies her from being celebrated, who has ever been reduced to her worst moments by people who don't understand what she's overcome. I want you to know something. Your struggles are not your shame. They are your strength. Every fall you've taken has taught you how to rise. Every heartbreak has deepened your capacity to love. Every mistake has given you wisdom that perfection could never provide. She paused, then looked back at Joy, her expression now carrying something deeper, not just defiance, but a quiet, undeniable compassion. I've been singing for 50 years, Joy. I've been told I was too much and not enough. I've been praised and criticized and written off and rediscovered more times than I can count. And through all of it, I've learned one thing. The people who try to diminish you are almost always running from something in themselves. They need you to be less than you are so they can feel better about who they're not. She gathered herself with the dignity of a queen, which is exactly what she was. I came here today to celebrate being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Instead, I've spent 15 minutes defending my entire existence to someone who seems to think that having lived a full life is something to be ashamed of. Well, I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. Proud of every song I've sung, every stage I've stood on, every tear I've shed, and every moment I've survived. Chaka Khan straightened her outfit with deliberate grace. "You know what the difference is between you and me, Joy? When I leave this studio, I'm going to get on a stage tonight and sing for thousands of people who love me. People who have grown up with my music, who have fallen in love to my songs, who have cried and laughed and healed with my voice in their ears. That's my legacy. That's what I built with my messy, complicated, beautiful life." Her voice dropped quieter, but even more powerful. "What will you leave behind, Joy? What will people remember about you when you're gone? The jokes at other people's expense. The gotcha questions designed to humiliate. The moral superiority. From someone who has never risked anything to create something lasting." The studio was absolutely silent. Joy Behar sat frozen, clearly not expecting the interview to turn into such a complete dismantling of her approach. Chaka looked at the audience one final time. "I want to thank everyone who has supported my music. Over the years, you are the reason I'm still here. You are the reason I got clean. You are the reason I keep singing Evan when my body tells me to rest. I do it for you. And I do it for the little girl from Chicago who dreamed of being heard. She made it. We made it. And no one can take that away." She turned and began to walk off the stage, then stopped, glancing back. "One more thing. Through the Fire." That song was about surviving. About going through the worst life can throw at you and coming out the other side still standing. I've been through the fire, Joy, many times, and I'm still here, still singing, still living out loud. Maybe someday you'll understand what that means. Maybe someday you'll have the courage to go through your own fire, instead of watching other people burn from the safety of your comfortable chair. With that, Chaka walked off the stage with the same regal bearing that had defined her entire career. The audience erupted, rising to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation that seemed to shake the studio. The remaining hosts sat in stunned silence. Whoopi Goldberg looked disappointed but not surprised. Sarah N. was visibly emotional, and Joy Behar sat at the table looking smaller somehow, like someone who had just learned a difficult lesson about the difference between controversy and cruelty. What had started as a routine promotional appearance had become something far more powerful. A woman who had spent 50 years singing about strength and survival had just demonstrated both in real time on live television, and she had reminded everyone watching that a life fully lived with all its struggles, triumphs, and imperfections is worth infinitely more than a life spent safely judging others from the sidelines. The aftermath of that interview would ripple across media for weeks. Clips of Chaka's defense of her life and legacy would be shared millions of times. Her music would surge again as a new generation discovered the woman behind the voice. And somewhere in that conversation, a deeper question would emerge. Why? Do we feel entitled to judge people for the very struggles that made them who they are? Because in the end, legacy isn't built on perfection. It's built on endurance, on honesty, on the courage to keep going. Chaka Khan had built hers through decades of music, through pain transformed into power, through a voice that refused to be silenced. Because that's what queens do. They don't just wear the crown, they earn it every single day.